It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Emily had imagined it 1,000 times, herself in a white dress, standing beside the man she loved, exchanging vows that would echo through the rest of their lives. But today it was someone else who wore the gown, someone else who stood by Adam's side, promising forever. And Emily? The air was thick with soft laughter, clinking glasses, and the scent of roses in full bloom. Every table was adorned with flickering candles, the kind that promised warmth. Yet, in the corner of the room, at a table furthest from the crowd, Emily was swallowed by the silence between the flickering shadows. Her fingers ran absently over the edge of her glass, the ice inside long melted, but she couldn't bring herself to drink. She stared at the floor, the sharp contrast of her emotions against the celebration around her creating a heaviness she couldn't shake. People laughed, danced, and exchanged stories of the bride and groom. But for Emily, the wedding felt like a dream she had woken up from too late. Her heart felt as though it had been carved out and left to linger in the emptiness. Her husband, Adam, was getting married again, to someone else. A woman she didn't know but whose presence had pierced Emily's soul like a blade. A year ago, she had been the one standing at the altar. They had whispered promises, swearing to love each other through all of life's storms. He had promised her loyalty, devotion, forever. And Emily had believed him. She had trusted him with her heart, with her soul. But somewhere along the way, the words had lost their weight. His eyes, once so full of love, had started to drift. And in the shadows, another woman had appeared. A woman Emily had never met, but whose presence had already filled the gaps in Adam's heart that Emily hadn't known existed. She had known for months the weight of his absence in their bed, the coldness in his words, the late nights that turned into excuses. She had seen the signs but had never wanted to admit them. She clung to hope like a lifeline, even though it was already snapping in her hands. And now, here she was, sitting in a room full of joy that wasn't hers to claim, while the love of her life promised his everything to someone else. Her mind wandered back to when Adam had still been her world. They had been perfect together. The way he had laughed at her jokes, the way he held her hand in a crowd as though nothing else mattered. She had never doubted his love. Never. Not once. Until the first night he came home late, his breath smelling of someone else's perfume. Until the lies, the excuses, and the guilt-ridden apologies that had become a routine she couldn't escape. She had stayed because she believed that love, true love, could survive anything. But now, as she sat in the corner, her heart cracked wide open, she realized just how naive she had been. She wasn't a wife anymore. She was a ghost, an observer in the life she thought she had built. The soft rustle of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. A shadow passed over her table, and she looked up. There, standing before her, was a man she had never seen before. His sharp suit, his commanding presence, his dark eyes locked onto hers with such intensity that Emily's breath caught in her throat. "You don't belong here, you know?" His voice was low, calm, yet carried a weight that seemed to press down on her chest. "This isn't your fight anymore." Emily's pulse quickened, her gaze flickering from his face to the wedding hall around them, trying to make sense of this unexpected interruption. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. How could this stranger know what she was feeling? How could he understand? He took a seat across from her without waiting for permission. His presence, sharp and uninvited, settled heavily between them. "Why are you here, Emily?" he asked, his voice a velvet whisper that felt like it could tear through the fabric of the night. "Do you still want him? Or do you want something more?" She blinked, confused. How did he know her name? She had her name. She had no answers, only the gnawing pain inside her chest. The pain that had been with her every moment since Adam's betrayal. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What do you mean?" The stranger smiled softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're here for closure, aren't you? You need to let go of this, but you're holding on to it like it's all you have left. What if there's a better way to move on? What if you could leave this night with something more than just memories?" Before Emily could process his words, he slid a small note across the table. It was folded neatly, almost too neatly, and her fingers hesitated before she took it. Unfolding the note, she read the simple yet chilling words, "Meet me in the garden at midnight. I can give you what you truly deserve." Her heart skipped a beat. What did this man know? Who was he? Her mind raced with questions, but before she could ask another one, the stranger stood, his figure casting a long shadow as he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. The wedding continued, but the laughter felt distant, the music distant. Emily couldn't concentrate on anything but the note. Who was this man, and what did he mean by what you truly deserve? Did she deserve anything more than this pain? Was there more to life than being trapped in the remnants of a love that had crumbled beneath her? Time passed in a blur, and Emily found herself standing in the garden outside, the moonlight casting soft, silver shadows over the quiet space. The air was cool, and for a moment she allowed herself to breathe, free from the overwhelming noise of the wedding. She felt a strange calmness settle over her, as though she were waiting for something, or someone. Then, from the darkness, he emerged. The stranger. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he handed her an envelope, his fingers brushing hers as he did. She hesitated but took it, her fingers trembling as she tore it open. Inside was a photograph, one she immediately recognized. It was a picture of Adam, smiling, holding hands with the woman who had become his bride. But what made her blood run cold wasn't the image of the happy couple. It was the shadowed figure in the background, a man whose face was obscured, yet his presence in the photograph was unmistakable. Her heart raced as realization dawned. This was no simple wedding photo. This was the beginning of a far darker web than she had ever imagined. "You weren't the only one betrayed," the stranger said, his voice cold now, his eyes steady and unflinching. "He wasn't who you thought he was, and neither am I." Emily's world shifted beneath her feet. The man she had loved, the man who had promised to spend his life with her, had been a lie. The stranger was no savior. He was a part of the betrayal too. A shadow that had always lingered in the corners of her relationship with Adam. She had thought the pain was only about Adam's infidelity, but it ran deeper. So much deeper. And in that moment, as the weight of the truth crashed down on her, Emily realized something. She had a choice. She didn't have to be the victim of this story. She didn't have to allow this betrayal to define her. She could choose to walk away, to let go of the past, and rise from the ashes of what she had once believed in. She stood, her breath steadying, the photograph still clutched tightly in her hand. The stranger watched her for a moment, but she didn't need his approval. She didn't need anyone's. With a final glance at the shadows around her, Emily turned, her steps resolute, her heart finally free. As she left the garden behind, she didn't look back. She had lost something precious, yes. But she had also found the strength to move forward, to embrace the unknown, and to claim her own future. And for the first time in months, Emily felt the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. She smiled, not because it was easy, but because she knew that from this point on, her life would be hers again. And that, in the end, was more than enough.